Okay, hello. I'm going to record a video here about how to create something called an expression description file. And an expression description file is a file we use to basically set up a text that can then automate or trigger a number of other workflows for ultimately ingesting a text into the SCTA database and making it available. And the reason we need something like an EDF is it's basically like a manifest or originally it was a way to record a list of questions that appear in Scholastic text, which is a pretty common thing to list out a number of questions. But we use this to create a structure, a basic structure of the text from which um, we can populate whole directory structures in which individual files can then be created, and then we can begin transcription work and so on. So anytime we want to add a new text, the first thing we have to do is create an expression description file. And some people have been asking me how to make those, and I thought I would just record a video about how to do it. It's not going to solve every difficulty, but it'll give you a sense of how it's done and how you could start one. So basically, all the expression description files live in something called the SCTA projects files, and that name is a little bit kind of a legacy from when we were using these for a different purpose. But you can see that this is populated with hundreds of expression description files describing the basic structure of a given text. So when we want to make a new text, the basic strategy of contributing to the SCTA is the same. You'll want to fork the repository, add your file, add the updated file, and then submit a pull request. The challenge is making that file. If we dig into any of these files, they can look, depending on how complicated the text is, they can look pretty daunting. Right? But they do have a schema that governs the rules. And at one point, we even were working on documentation. What we currently use is what we call the 0.0 EDF codename project files, because that's how we started it, or how I started it 10 or 15 years ago. And it's got a lot of legacy stuff in it because originally we weren't really using it in the same way. We were just using it to describe the files for a specific text, and over the years I've sort of generalized it. So long-term goal would of course be to improve it, but at the same time, even though it's a little bit unintuitive and there's some redundant things in it, it works. And the indexing process that has been set up is triggered by all of the properties that are in this file. So we would like to improve it in the future, but that improvement is going to mean improvement in a lot of other um, downstream workflows, and so it's not a priority at the moment. The basic point is, even though the rules aren't totally intuitive, if we just follow them, it works, and we can improve that later as needed. So there are some basic descriptions. Even this documentation might be a little out of date, but you can see that the basic idea is that there's a header that includes some who's the author. This is where we invent the ID for the text for the first time. We indicate the manuscripts that contain this text. And then in the body of the EDF, we'll list sections like so, and down to what we call the item level. The item level is as far down within the hierarchy that will go in an EDF, and then everything else will be recorded in the file, the TEI file that records the transcription for that item. Okay. So instead of just looking at that more, I thought we would just make one and kind of show you how I get started with that and some tools that might help us with that, and then how to submit the pull request, accept it, and time permitting, I'll show you how I process that, post-process that, and run the ingestion step so that it's now part of the database. All right, so let's consider an issue. Here I am on a text that we have transcribed in which we want to mark all the citations. This is a Florilegia with lots and lots of citations that you can see, but right here we can see that he's got many quotations from the Roman jurist Frontinus, right? And I don't have this indexed in the database yet. And the text that's being referred to here is the Stratagemata, right? So it's in 4 books, and we could take a look at the structure of that. Inside that 4 books, there is a further breakdown, but we can also see that those chapters are relatively small. So when we're thinking about what's the right kind of item level division, we're trying to find that happy medium between too small and too big. Again, the scholastic question was the archetype for that division. So that's generally what we're going for. And that doesn't fit all genres. In modern day texts, the chapter enjoys this sort of privileged division. So we would generally represent chapters as divisions and then uh, use those as the item divisions. Here, it seems like books are more playing that role. This is certainly the first level division. And if we were breaking it down even further, we might have a lot of files and they might be really, really small. So it's a judgment call, depends on the text. But in this case, it seems like breaking the text down into book 1, 2, 3, and 4 will probably be the best bet. All right, so we can certainly make this XML document for ourselves. Take a look here. We can certainly see if I got it. There it is. We can certainly make this by hand. If I move into the project, I can start a new XML file. Sometimes I'll copy over a file that already exists. And if you have a good editor, just a second, if you have a good editor like the Oxygen XML editor, the schema that you place at the top would actually help you build out that file. So we could do something like this, new file, right? And let's just call it untitled for the moment. And if I put this here, then it's going to start suggesting the tags that I need after I get it started here. So, okay, and then within that, it knows that this has a header, and you see that it will fill out these values for you. And I know these by heart, but we could do this. And again, just one more example. If I do an item, header, I can do an item, gives me the options, and it's going to fill out some basic needs. All right, so I think long-term, like this often is faster, but it's a steep learning curve. All right, so at one point in my life, I made a tool that shows more promise than, finished product, but it definitely works to create a starter EDF, and you could submit the pull request with what this tool generates, and then further editing could be done. So let's think about how that would work. Here's a list of texts we currently have, manuscripts currently indexed, and people that are currently indexed. And I want to create a new EDF. Okay. And the title is going to be the Stratagemata. So I can put that here, and don't want all that. Stratagemata. Let's see if I can spell that right. Stratagemata. Like that. Okay, so I'm editing that, and I'm going to toggle the edit off, and you can see that's going to generate the random ID for me. So we're creating the ID for this text for the first time. And when we're creating an author for the first time, we can make it up a random ID for that person. But obviously, once that author's used, we can't make a random ID. We need to reuse the ID. So that's why the person list is here. We can go Frontinus, and we're going to select that person and attach them to this as the author of this. Okay? Now, if we had, we're going to actually use the Loeb edition, and we're going to consider that to be a witness. So we'll change this later, but for the moment, we'll just call this Loeb 1925. Okay, and we'll make our first transcription will be a edition that is meant to represent the text as it stands in the Loeb 1925 edition. If there are manuscripts, then we'll add other witnesses, and they'll just get tacked on. So I'll add that. So this witness has been attached. And this is just, the Loeb 1925 is just a human readable label, right? What's important is the ID for this witness. And so obviously we could make this more precise human readable label later. All right, and now we can make our item divisions. So we have 4 books, and we're just going to go Libre 1, and our practice is to do the name, the organizing part, and then an Arabic number to capture that. There's also a spot to put a question title if these books had a subject matter associated with them, like on, I don't know, on, in the scholastic context, maybe on God, or a question, that's where that would go, and that would be a separate data point. In this case, we want to make 4 divisions: book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4. Okay. And obviously, there are much, much more complicated texts that can have hundreds of questions. And that might be a case where, this tool isn't going to be sufficient for that. But for a text like this with a one level deep in the hierarchy, we can just make those books. That's perfectly sufficient. So we created the name, gave us an ID, added the person, used an existing ID, created a witness, and then we just added the structure. And that's all we need to do to get started. And up here in the top left corner is export EDF. So I can export that. And now we've got that XML file that we didn't want to make by hand. And now we've got it filled out. Okay. So we're going to delete that one we made. And this is a functioning EDF. Obviously, we can do a lot more. If we have multiple levels of divisions, then that's something that the tool is not robust enough to do right now. And we come in and do that by hand. For example, a lot of texts, they might have a higher order hierarchy of like part 1 and part 2. So that would look like this: pars 1, and then maybe it ends here. And then you do pars 2 or something like that. And so you can do any number of hierarchies at that level. But obviously this text also has more divisions within the books, right? Book 1 has chapters within it. Those divisions are not going to be handled within the EDF. This item is going to point us eventually to a real file that contains the text, and all further organizing principles and sections will be extracted from that file. Okay. And again, some reasons this was created is in many cases we wanted to create a searchable question list before we had the text. Right? And so we wanted to have a place to record that. Likewise, keeping all the text in one file when we're dealing with text that can be 3,000 to 10,000 pages long creates all kinds of memory issues and collaboration issues. So there's a point at which we do need to divide it up, and we need to keep that organized. And that's what the expression description file does. So if that works, if you succeeded in that, you can, I would just copy this to the clipboard, and we could actually submit a pull request. So presumably you can find the SCTA project files folder, and I'll try to drop these links in below the video. But then you'll need to fork your own copy. I've already forked mine, so you'll see that it'll say I already got a fork. So instead of, I'm going to go directly to my account, which is going to be, here's my fork. And first thing I'm always going to do is my master branch, make sure it's synced with the upstream. I'm 6 commits behind, so I'm going to sync that. Okay, and now I'm going to make a branch that represents the pull request I want to make. EDF from Tinus. Okay, this branch doesn't yet exist, so I'm going to create that branch. Okay, and now I'm not even going to open this in a special editor. I'm just going to add a file, create new file, paste that here. And that file needs to be named the same as the ID for that text, .xml. Okay, that's all. I just pasted that in, and I'm done. And now I'm going to commit those changes. Created this RDF, and I'm going to commit it to the branch. Okay, come back to our main page here, and it says, do you want to submit a pull request? Yeah. All right, this is the basic stuff. Here's my work on this branch, and I'm sending a request to the upstream master branch. Hey, will you accept this? Make sure you submitted allow edits by maintainer. So if there are minor changes, the editors, maintainers can make those changes, and then I'm going to submit the pull request. Okay, now we've moved over to the upstream repository, and we can see that we have a pull request. Okay. Reviewers are going to check that, make sure everything looks good, no errors, good. And if it looks fine, the reviewer is going to come along and say approve. I can't approve my own pull request, so that's that. Come back to our pull request, and I'm going to squash and merge that. No conflicts. Okay, squash and merge that, and you're done. It's been accepted, and you can delete the branch, clean it up. Right, once it's been accepted, you don't need to keep that branch around. It was just there for that temporary work. Delete that. Let's talk about the post-processing steps to show how this gets ingested. You can see that if I go to Frontinus here, we don't have any text by him yet. Okay, so how does that happen? Well, let's go ahead and pull in those changes locally so I can see them. Okay. And we've got the one change. I'm just going to open this and take a look at it. RDR6. Okay. Everything looks fine. Making sure everything has IDs. Right. Really nothing to do here. The only thing that we would do normally, and maybe this could certainly be added to the tool, is we like to create an alias here so that when you're navigating the directory structure, it's a little easier to find the text you want to work on. These are purposely random and meaningless, and that has advantages. We can change labels without changing links, but having an alias can be helpful just in terms of working with the files. So not going to do much more except create an alias like this. And you'll see in a moment that this is actually going to create symlinks, another set of folders that will point to these folders. Okay. So that's the basic operation there. And let's go a few steps forward. So from this file, we can populate text directory. So I'm going to create item level directory and aliases, and I'm going to say do it for this file, which is going to be RDR 686. Okay, so now we made this directory a folder for each book, and we would, when we begin working on those texts, we will drop files in there. I'm going to move this to let's go take a look at that. Okay, here's our directory structure. We've got a structure for each book, and we've got this symlinks folder. So we can take a look here at text. And we're going to move in a couple of automated GitHub actions. So let's copy. Add a README. Okay. And let's go take a look at what we have here. You can see that we have a lot of text going on. So we want to go to RDR. Here's our text, okay? And we just created a README. We're just going to modify this to say repo for Fontinus Strategema. Is that what we call it? Stratagemata. Stratagemata. Okay, and then the only thing we really are doing this for is so that we can have a green light when checks are passing 686. So that's, we're creating this validation badge. And certainly these READMEs could be automated if I had time to do that. Okay, and now let's take a look at the symlinks folder, right? Because I don't know which one of these off the top of my head is book one, but here I know that book one is this one, and anything I put in here is going to go in the correct folder. And we'll leave it at that for the moment. Upstream, we'll need to create a repository for this. Okay, so we're going to create a new repository under the SCTX ownership, and it's going to be RDR 686. Okay, and we'll just repeat what we have in that reading. What we call this? Talking about Martinez. Okay, and we're going to make sure this is public. Create the repository. I'm going to copy the remote branch here. All right, and we're just about done. So we're going to make our first commit for the text repository. Commit. We're going to add the remote branch. I didn't like my, first we're going to make a Git repository. There we go. Git add files, Git commit, first commit. Now we'll make the branch, okay? And we're going to do one little move here, branch, move, right? And then we're going to push this empty text repository to upstream master. And that's really just going to have the README files now, but it's going to have the directory structure, and it's going to have the action workflows. All right, and we refresh this. We can see now we have. All right, and so we've made other videos. Oh, probably have a little error there. I'll fix that. Well, it hasn't run yet, so who knows. But I have other videos. I'll try to drop those in the link about how to start transcribing. Basically, if anyone wants to work on this text now, they'll need to fork this, create the file in the corresponding directory, start transcribing, and submit a pull request. Okay. And if we want to see that text in the repository, we can just simulate what happens every night. Every time a new EDF is added, it gets crawled in the middle of the night, and I'll just automate that here. So we're going to update data repos. So that's going to include our EDFs. Basically, it's just going to pull from GitHub anything that's updated. And we're going to create a new expression. And this is going to crawl. This is going to crawl the EDF, corresponds to this file, and it's going to create RDF records for all the sections, for all the, let's also make sure we have the text file here. Update text repo. Okay, and then try one more time. Okay, so it's going to go through each of the sections and create RDF triples that make us metadata assertions about the text that we can then query. And the final thing we'll do is update the graph. Update graph, top level. All right, so it's added now a graph for each of the books of the Stratagemata, and fingers crossed, come back here. Now we have the Stratagemata, all right? And the structure's here, and table of contents is here. And obviously we're not going any deeper than one right now because we haven't created any transcription files for book one. and all of the rest of the hierarchy will be contained in those corresponding files. So as soon as that's done, then this will get updated. Okay, and we can see even our low 1925 text is over here, etc. All right, so if you have any questions, put them in the bottom of the video and I'll try to answer them. If you got any suggestions for other videos, things you'd like to me to go over, let me know and I'll make a video. And as always, make sure to subscribe so that I know you're watching and so that you can know if be alerted if there are any new videos. All right, thanks for watching.